What Tennessee Titans fans should be looking for in the 2019 NFL Draft's first All-Star Game. The Tennessee Titans are working on finding a new offensive coordinator, but until that happens, let's focus on the players that will be working under the coordinators. In case you didn't know, the Shine Game practices are starting on Monday and we are finally going to get a taste of the All-Star Game process. After looking over the roster, these are the 5 guys that stand out most to me as potential fits with the Titans. Either from a value standpoint, a need standpoint, or both. So, let's jump into the 5 prospects from the 2019 NFL Draft that I will be focusing on this week. Point 1. Daniel Wise DT. Kansas. Wise doesn't jump off the page stats-wise, but he does pass all of the metrics that Jim Coburn looks for, so that is good enough for me. What stands out most to me is his leadership and effort. For a team that has never had anything to play for, Wise has always played every game at Kansas like it was his last. He constantly seems to be pushing himself and others, and very rarely checks out like so many other highly touted players do or have in the past. The Titans need to find a cheap way to add some pass rush to their defensive line. With Austin Johnson and Daquan Jones not providing much of a push, this could be a way for the Titans to keep bigger bodies like that on the roster while also getting an affordable pass rusher late in the draft. Point 2. Trey Watson LB. Maryland. Watson is a fun player to watch. He has speed to close and he isn't afraid to be aggressive. He reminds me a lot of Jayon Brown in that I could see him coming in as a late-round pick and being a guy who flies around and earns some attention in camp. The big issue is that he is a one-year starter at Maryland where you would like to see a longer history, but his film looks solid and this is a chance for him to show how well he can cover ground versus some flashy talent on the other side of the ball. Point 3. Kyle Phillips. Edge. Tennessee. I feel terrible about what happened to Kyle Phillips. A 5-star edge coming out of high school, Phillips made the decision to sign with the White-Hot Vols as they looked to be heading to an SEC title. And how did the fine coaching staff at Tennessee repay him? Well, for some reason they tried to make him a defensive tackle for 2 years. By the time that coaching staff was fired and the new one was brought in to replace him, they had already set him behind from a technique standpoint. On top of all that, an ever-changing series of strength and conditioning coaches made it even harder for Phillips to develop. Now that he is out of that pit of misery, there may be a chance for him to become something. He needs a good coaching staff and a good S. The Titans should take a chance on him as a 2-year developmental prospect. More from Titan-sized 4. Bunchy Stallings IOL. Kentucky. Tennessee Titans got pushed around on the offensive line this year. For a few years it felt like even if this offensive line was going to get beaten, they weren't going to go quietly. Apparently no one reminded them of that in the Baltimore Ravens game where Ravens players were taking liberties on special teams and also sacking Marcus Mariota double-digit times. I can tell you one thing, if you want a mean offensive lineman, draft Stallings. The first play of the Florida game, he drives a defensive lineman into the linebackers and then the second play he pins a defensive tackle to the ground and starts barking at him. I haven't finished my grading on him, but as soon as I saw that I had him marked as a draftable player because there is always a spot for mean dudes on the OL. Point 5. Lamont Gaillard IOL. George Gaillard is a defensive lineman turned center who has started center for 3 years at Georgia. People say he was snubbed last year of all SEC honors and this year he was rightfully included as a first-teamer. Gaillard has years of experience dealing with NFL-caliber opponents, so the transition should be a moderate one for him. With the size to play guard or center, he checks a lot of the boxes that John Robinson likes in a late-round pick.